It's my pleasure to introduce Susan Vranick, a national speaker, author, linguist, and medical professional who is passionate about communication and enhancing quality of life. Susan's journey began as a translator and interpreter for the Italian Ministry of Defense, and her passion for helping others soon led her to clinical work as a speech language pathologist. Throughout her impressive career, Susan has made remarkable contributions, including a TEDx talk on the power of words, and provides clinical treatment in more than 6 languages. She has also facilitated communication support groups for people with Parkinson's disease. Susan's impressive education includes degrees from Georgetown University, the George Washington University, and additional studies in Arabic, Farsi, and neuroscience at Harvard and Johns Hopkins. Susan first came to our attention when she responded to one of the LinkedIn posts and attended one of our Golden Gate Breakfast Club meetings. This morning, we're going to hear about an issue that is close to her heart and many of ours. To discuss Travels with My Aunt, Dementia is a Journey, Not a Destination. Please welcome Susan Vranick.
Fantastic. Good morning, Breakfast Clubbers. I bring you tips for memory. I loved hearing about the misplaced coffee cups, the misplaced tea cups. I frequently look for my glasses, which are generally on my head. My personal favorite is, can you hold on a second? I'm looking for my phone. These are all very common issues. They are not dementia. Today, we're going to talk about what memory loss is, what memory loss isn't, and how to communicate more successfully with those who are experiencing the challenges of self-expression, be it verbal or otherwise. I thought you might be interested in knowing when aging begins. Anybody have an idea when aging begins? In the interest of time, I'll share with you 30. 30 is when people feel, when the physicians generally accept the fact that our bodies are at maximum performance. We're at maximum at the age of 30. And after that, we begin a gradual descent, for lack of a better word. I'm picky about the words we use. I don't like to use aging. I use moving forward in life. So when you can't remember certain things, please don't say it's because I'm old, okay? You can't remember as well as a third grader or a 20-year-old because you have so many more memories. And in therapy, I've learned to do that with my folks to encourage them. That self-esteem, never underestimate self-esteem. It enables you to do more, to run faster, jump higher, also neurologically. In addition to believing that we're all 20 years younger than we are, there are 2 things that I want to share with you. They tell me that when you come to an event like this, if you have one carryout, one thing, one takeaway, it was worth your time and effort. Today, I bring you 2. The first thing is when you can't remember something, it won't necessarily work with a name. It may say, give me a moment. You can dress that up or dress it down. Give me a moment, please, or give me a moment. But it's affirmative, it's self-affirming. And what it does is reduce the adrenaline flow and the cortisol, which is your stressor hormone. When that cortisol is produced in excess, which it is when you're stressed, when you can't remember something and you know the heat is on, you get the heart palpitations and you get the cold sweat. That's not good for you because cortisol in excess pulls deep to the center of your brain. It's like your own personal rust agent. It goes to the hippocampus, and that's where you store your memories. So I tell people speed kills. You don't have to be behind the wheel of a car, and we are volunteers, not victims. So be careful. Give me a moment. You put up a fence, it'll come. And you can joke about it and say, I'll probably think about it at 3 a.m. How late will you be up? How late can I call you? And you make a joke out of it. Humor is important. Laughter is important. The other thing I love in this tech world is, especially with the younger people and with the grandchildren, you can say, one moment I'm having an MRD. M like Mike, R like Roma, D like Delta. MRD, that's trademark, by the way. It means a momentary retrieval delay. Okay? So from this moment forward, nobody has senior moments. Are we clear? You all have MRDs. All right? Okay. Let's begin. Ime olima zieftinimera na milisume yatin anya, ke ine puli discono na catalava teatsi, ine puli discolo. Echudikyo. I'm asking questions. Some people are nodding. Some people are shaking their heads. If you don't understand, how many of you understood what I said? Nod. Okay, and how many didn't? Shake your head. Okay. All right. Welcome to the world of dementia, where just because you say it doesn't make it so. How many times haven't you heard, maybe you did this yourself, people saying, Mommy, I told you, Daddy, I told you we had that appointment, and their reasoning. But the fact is that they heard, but they didn't understand. It's hearing and processing, and it's important to understand that distinction. This is a huge difference with dementia. Dementia is like travel to a foreign country. There's a different language, there's a different time zone, there's different cultural norms, different behavior. That's acceptable in that world and not as in ours. So it's important to respect that, but more than anything else, to recognize it so you can respect it. Then we get to the issue of, remember when children travel? The children always have the same question, right? Are we there yet? They don't care where they were. They don't care where they are. All they care is, are we there yet? And that happens a lot in the world of dementia for people who love, live with, or care for someone with a dementia. In moments in sadness, they lament what was and will never be, and they can't see beyond. And then in moments of clarity, momentary clarity, they'll flip forward and they go from the lament of the past, which was lost, to the dread of what's coming down in the future. But the fact is, the most important thing, they miss today. Today is all we have. And so it's so important to help people with this so that they can grab on with both hands and benefit from the presence of today, to enjoy every single moment. And that's my purpose in speaking with you today. So welcome to my program, Travels with My Aunt. Travels with My Aunt, actually, I got my degree, and then I got my education when I looked after her for 20 years. This is not the full travels. The full travels could be several hours. This is more like side travels, side excursions. But I hope it will illustrate, I hope it will provide building blocks for you. So something on which you can build to start the conversation so that we can clarify what your needs might be. Next slide, please. Dementia. Did you all know that there are like 400 kinds of dementia? Does everybody know that? There are many, many kinds of dementia. Sometimes they're principal dementias, sometimes they're subsets. It doesn't really matter. Dementia is a term that's used for symptoms. And it's like cancer. Unless you know where it is and you know what stage it is, you really can't be useful. You can't treat it appropriately. I am only going to speak to the 4. Now they're talking about 9 dementias that are taking the scene, that are a center stage. But I'm going to talk about 4. The first one is Alzheimer's, and the only reason Alzheimer's is getting all the publicity is because people are living longer. So you can have mixed dementias, and so eventually whatever the person has, chances are they will have Alzheimer's at the end. Not everybody. Some people get out with nothing at all, with no dementia whatsoever. The next one is pervasive vascular dementia, PVD. This is what my aunt had. I should say with Alzheimer's, it's good to have a visual. I want you to think of a box in the woods that's covered under vines. All right? You've all dealt with those vines. You can't get into it to put things in, new information, and you can't get into it to pull things out. It's generally bilateral in the brain, and it just gets everything tangled. All right? That is what Alzheimer's is like. Think of that as a visual. When you get to pervasive vascular dementia, we refer to that as pleasantly confused. All right. It's like being on Swiss cheese. When you're on the cheese, you're on the cheese and it's great. When you're not, you're in a hole. It's not so great. And when you're on the cheese, you may celebrate that, but you never know. when the next hole is going to be, how big it's going to be, how many holes there are going to be. So you have to be prepared. But that's pervasive vascular disease, pleasantly confused. Then you have the Lewy body dementia. And if it doesn't get confusing enough, you've got Lewy body dementia, you've got dementia with Lewy body, you've got Parkinson's, and they smush it all together. And you don't really need to know anything more than the fact that with Lewy body, it's a protein deposit. And it's believed that this is on the spectrum of Parkinson's. If you've got Lewy body dementia, that tends to proceed a little bit more rapidly than dementia with Lewy body, which is with Parkinson's, but that just muddies the waters. The issue with Lewy body is that it generally affects mood. It's also a prefrontal, frontal temporal dementia. So it's going to affect the mood. People will be good one day and not so good the next. Can be like night and day, which can be very difficult for someone who's trying to care for that person. And then finally, we get to frontal temporal dementia, which is what Bruce Willis had. There are lots of subsets. There's primary progressive aphasia. This is the tough one because this is characterized by behavior and behavioral outbursts. And this is the one that affects younger people more than anything else. I took issue, we all took issue in the speech field when they said that Bruce Willis was leaving the movie industry because he had aphasia. That was a terrible insult to the many, many thousands of people who are living successfully with aphasia every day. Aphasia in and of itself is a disorder. It's a disability. It's one and done. It is not a disease unless it pertains to dementia. Dementia is a disease. It's not part of the natural aging process. Next slide, please. The rules of the road. Remember, this is a travel log, okay? So everything's in the metaphor of travel. The rules of the road, there's only one rule of the road, and this is it. The person with dementia is always right. I'm going to repeat that again. It's important to know this because a lot of the problems would be obviated if people could just get their arms around this. You know, we're trained to treat the diagnosed. The undiagnosed sometimes provide a whole lot more challenges than those that are diagnosed. So the person with dementia is always right. And frankly, we know they're not always right, but they're never wrong. So just remember that. And I'll explain how that goes going forward. Next slide, please. These are the landmarks. This is not new. This is the work of the Johns Hopkins white paper going back to 1992. They've identified 4 hallmarks, 4 landmarks that you will see in all dementias. All right, not always to the same degree, not always at the same time, but you will see all of these. The first one is amnesia, aphasia, apraxia, and agnosia. Those are the 4. Amnesia is diminished memory, generally short term. It also goes into long term. Remember, first on, last off. Very often you'll hear spouses that are being called mommy or daddy. And people find it very difficult to accept that, the spouse, like, I'm not his mother, I'm his wife. But the fact is, mom was there before you were. She represented love. She represented security. And as the brain unpeels like an onion, okay, we're going backward in time. First on, last off. That is why they're calling people mommy and daddy instead of by the name. Interesting thing, I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing that. Don't know that it makes it any easier to grasp, to embrace, but it is a reason. The next challenge is with language, aphasia, loss of language. Now, this is related to the disease process, not aphasia as we know it in stroke recovery or in traumatic brain injury. It is difficulty in verbal expression, but as you witnessed when I spoke to you in Greek, and that puts a whole new spin on Greek to me, does it not? There's a difference between speaking and hearing, but if you have difficulty finding those words, you're going to have the same difficulty finding those words to translate, to understand what people are saying to you. And we tend to neglect this. I don't think we emphasize this enough when we're dealing with family members. Yeah, they can't find the words, but they can't always couple what you're saying with the meaning. And then, of course, there may be difficulty with reading and with writing. I have I was giving a talk once and a gentleman raised his hand and he said to me, she was an avid reader, and she said, my mother is reading. Do you think she understands? And I said, I don't know. We wouldn't know unless we tested her. Are you going to quiz her? And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, well, tell me this. Is she smiling? And he said, yes, she is. And I said, then we're good. Stay tuned. I'll explain more on that later. Another gentleman raised his hand and he said, my mother's reading too, but she's holding the book upside down. And I said, is she smiling? And he said, yes, she is. I said, then we're good. All good. Stay tuned. More on that later. After that, they have difficulty with apraxia. Apraxia is a challenge in voluntary movement. You may see a neurologist if you go to an exam. They'll do this. They'll ask the person if they can do that. They might ask you to button or unbutton to see what the agility is, to see what the coordination is. That can also affect speech. Children also have issues with apraxia. It's limited ability or challenged ability in voluntary movement. And you can just imagine how that affects the fall risk. All right. People will walk in and find family members sometimes bruised and they think that they're being abused. They've fallen. They don't remember how, they don't remember why. As my aunt would say, honey, does it really matter? You'd like to know why, but people, again, can't get their arms around it. It's important to understand what's happening, what can be changed, what can't be changed, and what might be made just a little bit better. And finally, the last one is agnosia. And I will give a scenario. I'll share a vignette with you and we'll have all of these present. Agnosia, somebody talked about facial recognition. It's difficulty with recognizing people, places, things, events, and sequencing. It's why my aunt put her top on backwards and inside out. Okay? It's why people put their shoes on and stand there with their socks. It's why people can't remember how to make a sandwich. Those are all the things related to agnosia. Deep breath, lot to digest. And I fear you're going to be drinking from a fire hose because I know our time is limited. And I could go on forever sharing this and would love to, but I promise I won't. May I have the next slide, please? The itinerary, that's the important thing. We have to know where we're going and when. They don't talk about staging in the medical field nearly enough when it comes to dementia. Now, I pulled this off. It's based on Craig Riesberg's. If you Google anything, any search engine on staging in dementia, you'll find a variety of tests out there. I wrote this for myself as a quick and dirty. I only wish I had had this when I was taking care of my aunt because it would have made things so much clearer. But I can tell you this, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, how educated, how credentialed you are, it all changes in the first person. It all changes in the first person. The objectivity, it's difficult. You cannot see the parade when you're in it. And sometimes you need the help of others to guide you along the way. This is why surgeons don't operate on family members. So at the first and second level, and I picked out 7 because I felt like picking out 7. 7's a magic number. Other people may have more. These are not cut and dried. They're not cut in stone. There's an overlap. There's a flip-flop. But this is generally how it proceeds. At the first 2 levels, the diagnosed and the undiagnosed present the same way. We present the same way as someone who's diagnosed with dementia. At the beginning, there's no evidence. They might not even know they have it. Okay. And then we get to the forgetfulness, whereupon all of us worry and think, oh no, I have it. I have it. I have it. It's not part of the descent from the summit. It is a disease. You don't necessarily get it by getting a day or a year older. Then we get to step 3. Step 3 along the way is it becomes obvious to others. You might need 10 words to complete a sentence, and there might be a preponderance of pronouns. Yeah, I saw that thing and I put it over there, but I don't know what I did with it. Did you see it? That's a perfectly good sentence. Little short on content, little difficult to understand, but this can happen very often when people are in the workplace. And I'm sure you've come in contact with people like this, and you think they're missing a few beats, and chances are they are. Okay, then you get to the 4th stage. The fourth stage is where people are having problems with orientation. They might forget where they parked the car or that they have the car, or like in my aunt's case, that they left the engine on, all right, and closed the garage door. Fortunately, she was on the other side. You might find that bills aren't being paid, slip up here and there. And the thing is, people at some point, they know nobody's 100% out of it. So they know that they're missing a beat and they're worried, they're angry, they're concerned, all kinds of emotions. So they withdraw socially. You've probably seen this happen, which is why it's so important. Exercise and socialize. Whatever people have, chronic, exercise and socialization is so important to keep people in the mainstream. The thing is, we have to know how to socialize and how to help them be their best selves. At the fifth level, people really shouldn't be left alone. You should have some form of supervision, especially if people are cooking. You might want to consider assisted living. There's a whole discussion, a whole program on making the move, on starting the conversation, on retiring from driving. We can't cover that all today. I'll do my best to answer your questions, and whatever we don't get to, you know where to find me. Please call, text, email. I'll be happy to guide you in any way that I can. But it's the sixth level that I want you to look at. That's where incontinence begins, okay? People are delusional. That's where they interpret something that is not. You'll frequently hear, my handbag. Somebody took my handbag. My handbag's missing. Somebody stole my keys. My wallet. Somebody took my wallet. Accusations of thievery. Before we knew what we know now in the field of dementia care, I just wonder how many people lost their jobs because of accusations of theft before we realized that we were dealing with memory loss in the individual. Activity repetition. Where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? They're not seeking content. They're talking to you because it gives them purpose, because they have words to say. They don't really care what you say back as long as it's nice. They probably won't process it anyway. But where are we going? And they might call, telephone calls, multiple telephone calls. Anybody ever had that? Call after call after call. You have two options. You can either not answer, or you can answer as if it were the first time, because for them it is. And truth be told, they're doing that because they can. Make sure you have the voice on tape, because they won't remember how to make that phone call for much longer going forward. It's a sequence. And then by the time you get to the seventh stage, that's where you have limited to no speaking, no walking. Generally, people are in bed, and diminished eating. And remember this, please remember this. Nobody dies at end of life because of starvation. It's a word that we have to eradicate in this part of the population. As people stop eating, their values go into flux, their sodium level goes up, they go into a euphoric state, kind of like the kind people paid big bucks for back in the 60s and the 70s. They're at peace. If you've ever been with anybody who's died, they're not grimacing, they're not unhappy, they're at peace. We're the ones that are struggling, but they're good. They're at peace. So remember, nobody starves at end of life. Next slide, please. Travel tips. These are the important ones, okay? I was taught a long time ago that if you don't want to have an argument with anybody, don't return the volley. It can be really annoying when somebody's trying to pick a fight. We've all been there, and you just don't give them the satisfaction. My aunt did this with me all the time. Yeah, but you're getting a nod. Thank you. Thank you for that, Carl. Okay, my aunt used to do this all the time when we were talking about moving, and she'd have those arms folded and say, well, I really like being here. I don't want to move. And I said, nobody said you had to. The choice is yours. You just don't want to fight. Don't return the volley. But above all, do not argue with them. Don't reason with them. They cannot reason. That's based on memory, which they don't have. They have what they have, but not the ability to weigh benefit and risk, as I'll discuss going on. Try to ask yes, no questions. Never, ever ask, do you remember? People do that all the time. I had a woman, I sat with her and helped her as her father was a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. World War II. And she would go in and she would discuss with him all the soccer scores for all 5 grandchildren. He probably didn't even know who she was. CMS doesn't want us to have name badges anymore. They want that family atmosphere. But personally, I wish the world ran around with name badges. It would make life a whole lot easier. You know, Susan, your daughter, Susan, your niece, it would be a whole lot easier. But, you know, they mean well, but from the clinical perspective, the need that I go, they don't get it. Not to cast aspersions on CMS. I'm just saying people don't understand what it's like and how people benefit best from working in a group with a dementia, whatever that dementia is. The important thing is to focus on the feelings, not on the facts. It doesn't really matter if they know what day it is. They might not even know who you are. You might not know that they don't know who they are. The thing is, are they smiling? Are they laughing? All right, that's the most important thing in life. We need something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to, but they don't always have that memory there. So we have to give them purpose. We have to give them choice, which will give them pleasure, okay? And smiling, and we have to do it with dignity. Martin Buber talks about the importance of communication and communion, and I have to tell this story. I remember a woman who was, we don't say confined to a wheelchair. She ambulated with a wheelchair. She was a stroke patient, nonverbal, and she also had a dementia. And her daughters would come in with all the designer bags saying, Mommy, we bought this, we bought that. And they'd redo her room, and they were all excited. And it was a frenzy of activity. And Mom would just sit there calmly, smiling and nodding. And I shook my head and I thought, if only they had come in with one bag from Saks and said, Mom, look, blue carnation, your favorite fragrance. They have a lotion. And you sit down with them, not beside them, across from them, so that they can see you. And maybe give her a hand massage, which is good for you and good for her. All right. And she's got that olfactory, that smell, that fragrance, which has memory. She can appreciate that. And you smile and you're at eye level. How wonderful and how calming that would have been for both of them. I suggest communion over communication. Remember that even a 9-month-old baby, if it's being handed off to someone and doesn't want to go, it's going to scream bloody murder. Child does not have language, but it's letting you know, I don't want to go. It doesn't matter how profound the dementia, people will be able to say yes or no. Might not necessarily mean what they're saying, but they will be able to indicate. They'll agree or they'll disagree. What they will not be able to do, and this is very important in making decisions if you're the decision maker, they will not have an ability to weigh benefit and risk. No ability to weigh benefit and risk. That's critical. That's one of our biggest issues. Remember that if they're telling you that they see bugs and they're concerned about something, the trick is to validate. That's the technique. You validate. If they say there are bugs crawling on the wall, you don't say, oh yeah, I see them too. They're icky, aren't they? You say, where? Where are the bugs? Do you want to be by the bugs? No. Well, come, let's go. Show me where to go so that we can get away from the bugs, okay? You validate and then you redirect. We have issues with illusion, delusion, hallucination. Illusion is misinterpreting something that is. My aunt stared up into a streetlight one night and said, oh, isn't that a bright moon? I looked up with her baby blue staring straight into that light, and I didn't say, oh, for heaven's sakes, that's not the moon, that's the light. I said, oh my, it is bright. Let's see if we can find some stars. Are there any stars up there? Redirected. Illusion. Delusion, where's my handbag? Don't argue, I'm looking for it. Okay? Hallucination, you can hallucinate in all 5 senses. Did you know that? You can, we think about hearing things or seeing things, but you can smell things burning. They might be telling you that they smell something burning. They might be telling you that something tastes awful. Sweet, by the way, is the last taste to go, and it's on the tip of the tongue. So if people don't want to take medication, you can even use a jelly or something and put the medication in there. Sweet will go first. That's why you eat dessert first. That's why with children, there's always room for dessert, and dessert goes down first. Okay, and then they might feel things that are different. And again, you acknowledge, always validate their concerns. Never underestimate the power of hearing and vision on memory. You can't remember what you can't hear and you can't see. It doesn't help. So that if your glasses are the lenses are dirty, or if you can't manage the batteries, or the batteries are dead, or people don't know how to put them in, and just because they have hearing aids doesn't mean they have the dexterity to put them in and maintain them. I found 5 hearing aids, thousands of dollars, under my aunt's chair when she died. The hearing aids that we couldn't find. Okay, it's got to be appropriate to the individual. And finally, remember that smiling is a universal sign. And when you smile, and we all smile, it releases serotonin. That's a neurotransmitter that regulates mood. It goes up here. You smile, they smile, we all smile. And we grimace, okay? We don't grimace, we grimace. It means it's the same thing. We're retracting that muscle because it releases natural painkillers, endorphins. I bet you didn't know that. So smile and get them to smile back. Remember, smile is the one thing you can give away and it comes back to you in spades. Next slide. Okay, communicate. I love this quote on communication. Remember that we operate, most of us, under the misconception that it's actually taken place, but there's so much to communicating. It's how we look, what we say, what we do. So if you're in a hurry, they can feel that. They have no sense of time at a certain point. So if you can't make it to visit, don't worry about it. They won't know. And even if you go, they may accuse you of not coming. Okay. If they come in and they say, I haven't seen you for ages, don't reason. You say to them, did you miss me? I missed you. Did you miss me? Happy face, positive spin. All right. Dial them back in. Next slide, please. Now we're going to go to three quick stories, 3 vignettes to illustrate these things. And you can tell me, think about what they might be. Is it going to be amnesia? Is it going to be aphasia, apraxia, or agnosia? The first one is a not so merry Christmas. I brought my aunt over to the house. She sat down on Christmas morning. I handed her a package. She looked at me as though I had thrown water on her. She had disdain and horror in her face. What do you think was going on? Agnosia. She didn't know what the purpose was. She didn't know why I was giving her a gift. She didn't know that it was a gift. She didn't know what it was for. She didn't know what to do. So what did I do? I immediately grabbed the dog and brought the dog over. She called the dog Little Precious Lamb of Calgary. She loved the dog. She started stroking. That's why many communities have animals and cats in them, because just stroking an animal and feeling that calm, those of you who have animals, you know what I'm talking about. That's oxytocin. That's the cuddle hormone. The same thing a mother feels when she hugs her child, the same hormone from intercourse. You get the same feeling when you stroke an animal. All right. So I brought the dog over and all was good. And the package remained where it was. Then there was Honey, I Can't Get Out. She locked herself in a restroom. I couldn't explain to her how to get out. I tried. I think it was a combination of everything, all 4, amnesia, aphasia, I don't know if she couldn't understand what I was saying. She was panicking. She couldn't remember. She didn't have the dexterity. She didn't recognize what was going on. I just said, it's okay, tone of voice. I'm coming to get you. Make way. I'm coming to get you. And with that, I slid under the stall and freed us both. Fortunately, it wasn't Grand Central Station. It was a brand new building, not a repeat performance. But if you're out with a loved one, don't ever let them go to the restroom alone any more than you'd allow a child to go alone. You just never know. And finally, the last one, at least it isn't raining. This was one of the most telling, one of my greatest learning experiences. Can I have the next slide, please? You'll see this dialogue. I could always tell how my aunt was feeling by her tone of voice. She'd answer the phone by saying, "Hi, honey," or "Hi, honey," and I knew if we were plus or minus that day. All right. So this is how it would go. She'd say, "Hi, honey, how are you?" And I'd give her an answer. We're talking about the day. I picked her up after work. We're going out to dinner. She said, "Did you have a good day?" And I would answer the question thinking she's processing. Oh, no, no, no. Then she said, "You must be tired and you have a right to be." And I'd answer, "I'm so glad to see you." And she'd kiss my hand, which I found very unnerving. She was such an elegant woman. And the fact that she would do that seemed so subservient, it unnerved me. I learned. I'll explain what that was all about later. So then I'd go on and I'd say, you know, are you happy? And then she'd say, at least it isn't raining. And that was her routine. I didn't realize she was on a loop until one day we were in the middle of a downpour. And as she was just kissing my hand and the skies opened up and traffic was stopped in all directions, she looked at me and she said, at least it isn't raining. Because in her world, it wasn't. This was her routine. They do what they know. That's why they ask the questions. Where are we going? Where are we going? They're not seeking content. They're seeking purpose. They're trying to take advantage of what they're able to do. That's why they make multiple phone calls. And the hand kiss, because she couldn't find the words to tell me how elated, how joyful she was to be with me. And my mistake, I should have kissed her hand back. Next slide. From the moment we come into this world and to the moment we leave, our destination is the same. It's all about quality of life. Purpose, pleasure, the joy, the choice, and the dignity. We have to stay focused on that. Remember that we have to go to their worlds because they can no longer come to ours. But when we go to their worlds, we are visitors. Next slide, please. We must conduct ourselves accordingly. You wouldn't go to somebody else's home and move their furniture around. If they want to wear stripes with circles, let it be. If they're smiling and it makes them happy, be proud that they're alive and they're with you. I know it can be a little unnerving where we want things to match and we want things to be just so, but our just so isn't their just so. I think the philosopher Wittgenstein used to say, I thought I was looking at the picture, but I was really looking at the frame through which someone else saw it. Okay, we all have different frames. They have really different frames. We have to enjoy their world. Now, I know we're running on time, and I think I've answered the questions with regard to the hallmarks and the challenging behavior. I would just want to tell one more story, Patricia, because this is really, really important. But before I do that, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the Breakfast Clubbers for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you. I'm touched, and I'm so passionate about being able to share this information. I hope you have building blocks that you can use, and I hope you'll reach out if you have questions. I want to thank my friends who gave up their schedules to be with me today. And I want to thank in particular President Fripp and Vice President Susan Ruin, whom I've been admiring from the wings for the last 20 years. She doesn't know that, but that's the truth. So now I'm going to tell you this final story, which is a very important story, okay? My mother was a professional dancer. When I was born, rough delivery, I was paralyzed from the waist up. So my mother being a dancer immediately got me into dance class so I could have bilateral arm movement, except that I was painfully shy. I am painfully shy. I was tall, gawky. It didn't fit. You know, I wasn't comfortable. So as we're at this first recital at the conservatory where she is a superstar and I'm there denigrating I didn't denigrate the family name. I gave new definition to horrendous. Okay. But she's sitting there through every last minute of that 60-minute recital. As we walked out, I looked up at her, smiled sheepishly, and I said, so how was it being my dancing? And my mother looked down at me, eyes twinkling, cover girl smile, never missed a beat. She said to me, Susan, your potential for improvement is infinite. So with that, I leave you with that thought. Dementia is a journey. It's not a destination. It's what people have. It's not who people are. As we learn more, we do more, and we do better. Okay? Dementia is a disease. Don't engage dementia. Dementia is the devil. Remember the person that you loved. So I leave you with that thought. Take comfort in knowing that our potential for improvement, your potential for improvement, is infinite. Thank you. And that's Doris. Meet Doris. And one more, and that's my mom. That's my mother. 18 years old. That was one of her headshots.
Wonderful. Of all the topics you could have discussed, this is so valuable. And as you heard from all of us, we know it's not because we're getting old. Wonderful. Uh, my Now, you are a very well educated person.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did your education prepare you for travels with your aunt?
In part. But there's nothing you can, if you give someone instructions on how to tie a shoe, it's not going to happen. Okay? It's not going to happen. You don't understand it until you walk in the shoes. And a lot of it I would have missed had I not been with a colleague and a business partner. When I made arrangements to move my aunt, I said, I think I'm going to wait. We're going to move her in April. And my friend said, you will move her in January. And she was right. She was right. But yeah, we can do it tomorrow. We think tomorrow is going to come. But what if tomorrow does? And in fact, at that point, the average stay was 18 months. And that's about how long she was there, 18 months. It worked out well. Her biggest fear, and the spirit of full disclosure, I should say that Doris was not my aunt. Doris was my mother's dear friend. And before my mother died, she made me promise two things: to share my knowledge with others. I was still in grad school. I didn't think I had a lot to share, but I promised. And she said, and take care of Doris because I told her you would. She had no children. And I did. And I delivered. That's why every program is dedicated to my mother. It's a deposit on account.
Good. Well,
So,
Susan and I don't have children, so we're keeping your number on speed dial.
and we
And
all are.
Susan, yeah,
Aging solo is a big topic. It's a huge topic.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, Susan has the first question, then Janice Litvin has the second. Over to you, Susan.
Well, from one Susan to another, I took copious notes. I learned a lot because I wrote you in the chat, my dear Aunt Gay in Chicago has dementia. And what I learned, and I'm glad you said that you don't ask them their name, etc., is a true story. My Aunt Tilly went away to Toronto, came back to Chicago, and said to my grandfather, who was 87 at the time, Pa, do you remember me? And my grandfather brilliantly looked at her and said, What's the matter, Tilly? You forgot your name? And that's, I mean, we seem to put people on the spot, and we do that in so many rooms. Do you remember me? Never say that. But what you said, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. I was seeing my Aunt Gay in my last visit to her. And what you said about that she wasn't really your aunt, she really was, because there are relatives by blood and there are relatives by love. And you given her so much love that you have now shared with so many of us so we could be more loving and wonderful, helpful people. So that's all I got to say. But man alive, I'm going to listen to this again on
Thank
the
you, Susan.
video. Thank
She
you.
wasn't my aunt, but she was family. We were the dynamic duo.
Oh, by the way, what Patricia and I do is we have a plan. We're very nice to our friends' children, so they'll take care of us in our old age.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, and please keep your comments to questions because we have got a lot of hands. We have Janice, then Gordon, then Janelle, and there are more, but I can't remember that many. Okay, Janice, and then Gordon, and then Janelle.
I've had my hand up too.
All right, you're on the list as well as Antonio.
Thank you for that. Very, very insightful. There are a few people in my life who have or had dementia. One of my very best lifelong friends had severe, I will call it Alzheimer's. Her husband took me to see her. I have a double question built in. Number one, when I walked in the room, she exhibited emotion. And when I left the room, she exhibited emotion. So it felt to me like she had emotion, although for a moment I thought she recognized me. Of course she didn't. I'm assuming, but
You don't know that. You don't know that. She might not know that you're first cousin once removed. But she knew you were a good person, and that's what matters.
And the second built-in question is her Alzheimer was early onset, which her mother also had. So what can her daughter do? Is there any preventive steps a daughter can take with an inherited Alzheimer's?
You can be tested for it, and as the doctors will say, and then what? I mean, there are tests if there's, I don't speak much to this because it's within the medical purview and I want to stay in my lane. Your concern is about the potential for her to have the same diagnosis.
Yes.
She could go to a doctor. I would discuss it with the neurologist. I would discuss it with her mother's neurologist to find out. And the name of the game is to plan, to prepare, to understand, and to set yourself up for how you want your life to unfold. And that's true for all of us, Alzheimer's or dementia or no dementia. But that would be my recommendation. And to
Okay,
stay active. Some of the things
Yeah.
can be mitigated to a certain extent by lifestyle changes. They'll always say smoking and alcohol, okay? Eliminate those. But also watch your sugar. If you're diabetic, if most of us don't have one thing, we have multiple things. Stay active socially, stay active physically to the extent that you can.
I love that. Thank you.
Colin, Alan, or Colin, Janelle, Gordon next, then Janelle, then Alan, then Antonio, then Colin Hussey, then our guest, Ali Williams. Gordon.
Thank you, Patricia. I don't know if I can be succinct. I lost my wife of 63 years, 4.5 years ago to Parkinson's, which had been diagnosed 5 years before. Without extending this, what I would like you to do is to tell us how to find support groups. We lived in Las Cruces when she was diagnosed. They had a wonderful Parkinson's support group. We also got some reading materials from a group, I think, in Texas to help her maintain her reading ability, et cetera. And we also had wonderful doctors who diagnosed her. So I'm going to shut up and ask you to help us, those who have this situation, to find help.
Okay. Parkinson's is my sweet spot. I see about 60 people a week online for voice classes, but for socialization, for loudness, and for camaraderie. My recommendation with Parkinson's is always first order of business, you get yourself a neurologist who's a movement disorder specialist, because they're the ones that are on top of everything and they know the latest developments. Google Parkinson's associations. You might even call one of the nursing communities or one of the assisted livings in the area and see if they know of any Parkinson's groups in the area. You don't now with virtual, we have the Parkinson's Foundation of the National Capital Area. We're the orange ones. You've got the Parkinson's Foundation, they're turquoise. You have Finney, Davis Finney. There are lots of support groups out there. They have young onset Parkinson's, lots of things. Google, and send me an email if you need help, and I'll be happy to make the extra step to help you. And for anybody who's trying to improve their voice and needs socialization, let me know. We have people coming to my group from 15 different states right now, but we're not at 50 yet, so I'm still recruiting. Did that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, we now have a new best friend who is an expert we can come to. That's important to know. Janelle Barlow, then Gordon. Then Alan Garber. Unmute Janelle. Now you shared your entire screen, Janelle.
There. Okay, sorry about that.
Welcome to my world, Janelle.
Janelle, we are seeing your screen of
Yes,
all
I
your
hear
different
you.
articles.
I hear you. Okay, why don't you go on to somebody else right now, and I'll come back in when I get rid of this.
We're still seeing your screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can hear me though, yes?
Yes, go ahead. Ask your
Yes,
question.
but
I'm
it's
happy to
very
answer.
distracting.
Okay, but the code, the tab to reduce the screen is not there. So I don't know quite what to do.
All right, let's go to Alan Garber for your question while you see if you can straighten that out, Janelle.
Hi, Susan. I have one question. I know you're not a medical doctor, but what type of dementia would you say Joe Biden has?
I wouldn't say anything at all right now because I'm not a physician. I am not his diagnostician. I'm going to refrain from comment on that because I think it's the most appropriate thing to do right now. He has a doctor who is diagnosing him. He's also 80 some years old. And he probably does a better job going from room to room than some of us do. But then again, he has support staff. I'm going to beg your indulgence in refraining from comment. I think I owe the man that much.
All right, thank you. Okay, Antonio.
Thank you. I'm in the car, so please forgive not having a video there. I just want to say, when you said I should have kissed her hand, Susan, it's all about the waterworks. The waterworks just poured on like crazy. It was heartbreaking. It was sad. It was beautiful. What a wonderful gift that you shared with us today. I want to tell you how much I appreciate it so very much. And that could be the title of a book. I should have kissed her hand. So beautiful, so poignant. I just want to say how much I appreciate it. So thank you very much for that.
Alan, thank you. Now you're starting my waterworks. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So that was Antonio. Yeah, who
Antonio,
who has
I'm sorry.
quite a way with words. But that would also be a great name for a speech. And then, you know, colon, travel with my aunt. That was brilliant. All right, Janelle, I don't know if what I did, I found a little line and I pulled across the screen. So your question, please.
Okay, so I'm back again full. Yeah, I think I whacked my cursor.
I don't know. I just manipulated my screen.
Yeah, okay. There must be some discussion in your community, the area in which you're studying, about Simone Biles, who had what the world referred to as twisties when she could no longer orient herself in space. Do you think, is there any chance at all that this was some sort of, aphasia, challenges with voluntary movement? Because she certainly knew how to do all these things. She just couldn't orient herself in the environment.
I'm not a medical doctor and I wouldn't even venture a guess in that area. I don't know enough about the twisties and gymnastics. Cognitively, she seems to be right on point. Exactly. But apraxia is a different thing. And it is in the brain, but it's a different thing.
Because I know she had a lot of psychological counseling in the following year, and now she's back again making those same impossible twisties.
I want to talk about depression and demoralization. Demoralization is what we feel. We very often throw the word around and say, I'm so depressed. We're not. We're demoralized. We lose our self-esteem, and that can lead to depression as a medical condition. And I don't know why she was going to therapy, but I think she's made a marvelous recovery, and I applaud her.
Absolutely.
All right, Colin Hussey, your question, then our guest, Ali Williams.
Okay, yeah, I have a friend who had a relative with dementia, and he did a fair amount of research, but he was, have you picked up like a connection between sunlight and dementia, the amount of sunlight that you get? Because
You're referring to the sundowning is a very common thing. You know, we do have circadian rhythm, all of us. And sometimes even when people have depression, they suffer from SIDS, which is seasonal affective disorder. Okay. And they use strong lights. So sunshine is good. Sunshine is helpful. It's important to try to keep people on a regular circadian clock. But as time goes on, depending upon the degree of the dementia, they get their time zones mixed up. But they might have a more difficult time at night. A lot of times people are roaming at night. They're ambulatory and they're elopement risks. They're walking around. But yes, I think sunlight is good. It doesn't always help when you need it. I mean, when you want it, it's not always available. And they're using light therapy. Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So as you can see, your topic is very, very popular. All right, good. Ali Williams, before you ask your question, I believe you're probably a friend of Susan's. So tell us who you are.
Thank you. And thank you so much for including me in your conversation this morning. I'm Ali Williams. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Bethesda, Maryland Chamber of Commerce. And I get the sense that Susan's remarks today just open a new door for so many people. And I'm very fortunate because I get to spend a tremendous amount of time with Susan. So again, thank you again for allowing me to be part of this conversation. A lot of people work with their family members who need assistance. So my question is, how can caregivers best support their loved ones while maintaining their own well-being?
That's the first order of business, maintaining their own well-being. Because statistics prove that a lot of times caregivers predecease the person that they're caring for, whatever it is. Money is an issue. It's there are services out there, but a lot of times it's hard to get services. So you build your community. If you can pay for service through long-term care, whatever you can do. When people ask if they can help, don't just say thanks. Tell them yes. Can you sit with him or her for 2 hours? Don't be afraid to answer the question. All right. And for those who want to help, improve your ask. All right. Make it more direct. Can I do this? Can I do that? That's one thing. Short of reach out to your religious communities. Reach out to the social network in your communities. We have come a long, long way in the last 30 years, a long, long way. That would be my recommendation. The issue, as always, is money. And contact the Alzheimer's Association, because now I'm pleased that they're saying the Alzheimer's Association and the other dementias, okay? And they sometimes have services that they can provide as well.
All right, good. And we will get to Betty Taish. I just want to acknowledge that we've had some of our members join before the introductions. Christine Torrington, Paul Coleman, one of our members from England, Claudette Good O'Neill, who always has a coaching client right before, which she races out and closes up so she can hear our speakers. And with that, Betty Taish, your question.
Thank you for an amazing and very informative presentation. A couple of things. I'm past healthcare worker, nurse practitioner, so I've worked with people for a long time. What bothers me is when people, how we can help the caregiver, because they'll talk to me, like, let's say my brother, for example, would say, oh, Peggy, his wife, she did this, and she thinks she's married somebody else in the nursing home, whatever. I mean, and they really believe that the person believes it. So they come up with all these stories, and it's the caregiver and how to deal with that. And so I try to say, I used to say, you don't have to respond to that. Don't say no to them, and don't, as you said, argue. What's the best technique for when your friend calls on the phone and is talking about their wife that is suffering, and they go on and on about the stories that the wife comes up with, for example? And am I making, it's like us helping the caregiver and listening to the caregiver bemoan all of the stories that the patient, I'll say, the person with dementia is
the diagnosed and the undiagnosed.
Yeah.
What comes to mind is the 3 monkeys: hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Okay. There is no one who is harder of hearing than someone who doesn't want to. And I have a friend who's a nurse right now. She's been a nurse for 60 years. And her husband has, he's got issues. He's got cognitive shift. And she'll, the question is, do they want a solution, or do they just want someone to listen? That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can talk until you're blue in the face, but if they're not ready to hear it, we had a couple where the husband put the wife in the home because she had Alzheimer's disease and she found a boyfriend. Okay. And I had a situation in another place where the husband found a woman, and what we do is and the family member didn't always know about that. And what we try to do is just keep them separated so there wouldn't be a blow up. But one of the boyfriend walked around in a huff every time the husband came to visit. But, we had to keep him busy so that there wouldn't be an altercation. You do what you can. It's not like they were going to fornicate. It wasn't that they were going to produce children. They just, they liked being together. They liked holding hands. And who are we to say that they can't do that? It's all a question of pleasure, and they don't know. They don't remember. They just know affection. But with regard to your friend, first find out if they want to listen or they just want to talk.
Good point. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
Susan and I have a friend who is 96 that we visit, and she had an operation to remove her gallbladder, and being put under, when she came out, it was almost as if she had Alzheimer's. And when we visited her, she was very concerned about a dog. Her dog was out. Well, I've known her since I was 30 and she's never had a dog. And also she was really concerned about moving her car. Well, at 96, she hadn't been driving for 20 years. So apart from listening, should we just sympathize? Last time we saw her last week and she's much better, so she didn't think about a dog and a car. But when they are really agitated, when they're agitated about something that we know doesn't exist, what would we do?
Okay, my first question is, when was surgery, Patricia?
Her surgery was in December, and
so we're talking 9 months out.
Well, maybe it would have been probably when I was in England. Okay, it was May. I'm
Okay.
I'm confused what month we're in.
I've got a potential for you. Go ahead.
Okay. It was probably a month after. She was very confused. We saw her a few weeks after that, and she was much better. She wasn't agitated.
It sounds to me, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm going out on a limb here, but
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know much about this either. And I think we have some physicians online, and I would hope they'll bear me out on this. With COVID, the incidence of delirium, and dementia has become very pronounced, and we realize how much we don't know about it. In people over 65 who are hospitalized, I think it's some outrageous percentage, like 85% pre-COVID, that the delirium went undiagnosed. Now, delirium, you can come back from that. But what people don't realize, when people think of delirium, they think of people, railing and so forth. But there are two kinds. There's the active delirium, and then there's a very quiet delirium that manifests itself as depression. What she might be experiencing is delirium. She might be hallucinating. I don't know. But I would stay focused. You don't want to try to change and argue with her. You don't know if maybe she had a dementia and this exacerbated it. Okay. We don't really know. So the first thing is she smiling? Is she happy? It's all about quality of life. You talk about positive things. Don't worry about her getting the facts. Worry about her getting the feelings. How are you feeling? What would you like to do? Are you hungry? Would you like to try X or Y? Things that about her that she might appreciate, and just monitor. I had a client who was 65 years old. She was an event planner extraordinaire, and she came out of surgery and she had delirium. She could not tell time. So when her daughters came down the hall and I said, I'm the speech pathologist, I was also director of rehab, and she said, Mother doesn't need speech. Well, for those of you who don't know, speech reaches everything from here to here. So if that part of your body is involved, chances are speech should be, all right? And they don't know that. But when I saw she was delirious, so I showed the clock picture. She couldn't tell me time. So we worked and she got better. It can take 6 months, 8 months. It can take a year. She was in her 60s. We don't know what's going on with your friend who's 96. The important thing is that she's happy. Remember, we come into this world crying. I'm on a personal mission to make sure, at a minimum, we all go out with a smile.
Wonderful. Well, Susan, there is no way we can thank you for such a wonderful presentation. And my last question before any closing remarks you have is, if we were to invite you back next year, what subject would you like to talk about?
Maybe the words we use?
All right, fine. Believe
How about
me,
that?
we have many wordsmiths, authors, and speakers. I believe the words that we use in your presentation might be different than one that I might deliver, for example. So, Susan, we will put this Susan on our list to contact in the future again. Thank you very much indeed, and we will. Let me see. We will make sure everyone has your contact information. Let me go back here. There we are. If anyone wants to contact Susan, and the website is www.speakskill.com. Speakskill.com, and Susan at speakskill.com. So anyway, any concluding remarks from you, Susan, before we applaud you in the most effusive way we can?
First of all, I want to thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I'm grateful to share the information. If you want to know about swallowing, I can talk about that. That's important. I did a DVD on that, put a website up many years ago, and it defaulted to porn because the world wasn't ready. And now you get every major teaching university in the world, okay? We all swallow every day, all of us every day. And sometimes it becomes a little bit more difficult, so I could talk about that. My parting comment is this: gratitude, exercise, socialize, and don't forget, give me a moment and remember that your potential for improvement is infinite.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And remember, the Golden Gate Breakfast Club is full of interesting individuals, and we invite other interesting professionals to speak to us on a variety of subjects 3 weeks out of the 4. We look forward to seeing you next week. And Lauren Ward, open your email from Antonio that comes out Sunday or Monday. And Craig Stewart Adams sends another one on Monday or Tuesday about our meetings. If you want, in our guests, if you would like to go to GGBCSF, Golden Gate Breakfast Club, San Francisco.com or .org, goes to the same place. You see our upcoming speakers, and from the website itself, you can click straight in to join our Zoom meetings. With that, thank you very much, Carl Walsh. Thank you for Tony Woodall, who will be putting this video up on YouTube. You want to find it, go to YouTube and put Golden Gate Breakfast Club. It will come up for you. That's how you find. And remember, invite your friends. Susan did a great job at inviting all her friends. So with that, see you next week. And once again, thank you very much. We appreciate the information and your wonderful personality. And you have definitely booked your place in heaven for all your work and kindness. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.